Hello, I'm Fionnán Sheahan and welcome to The Tonight Show. Hang in there. The words of the Minister for Housing, James Browne, to aspiring homeowners. He believes measures in the imminent National Housing Plan will deliver a real shift in how we get housing moving in this country. But can the government deliver the radical change that's needed to fix the crisis? I'm joined by Fianna Fáil TD Paul McAuliffe, People Before Profit Solidarity TD Richard Boyd-Barrett, and news correspondent with the journal Eimer McAuley. And you can send us your comments. Simply scan the QR code or contact us via the WhatsApp number. Paul McAuliffe, another minister, another plan. Before we get into what's actually new this time around, you just give us a stock take. Where are we now? How many houses are going to be built this year, do we think, at this stage?
Well, look, I suppose I want to first of all say I haven't seen the plan. It's going to be announced tomorrow. We've had input into it in a number of different meetings with James Browne. And I think if anybody's waiting for the silver bullet tomorrow on how to fix the housing crisis, they don't understand the complexity of the housing issue. So, housing is something that we're going to have to keep changing, keep doing things differently. We have been, even since the re-election of the government last year, there have been new measures which we've brought in each month. And we're going to have to keep doing that to max out how much we can build.
OK, so what's standing out for you then that you would say, oh, this is new, this is something innovative, it's going to be a bit of a game changer?
What I want to see in it. So, Housing for All was very significant in terms of giving the local authorities new models. So the cost rental model, affordable purchase, below construction costs, owner-occupier, and then social housing. I want to see the delivery of that. I want to see more supports for local authorities, but also more pressure on local authorities to actually deliver the stuff that we've put in place. And there are sites in all of our constituencies where local authorities are building those homes, but it's not at scale and it's not at speed. And I want to see the Land Development Agency do more as well. So that would be one area. And the second area is, while there is some private development, particularly outside of Dublin, inside the M50, there's a big insistence by local authorities on apartments only. And that effectively means units are too expensive, because apartments are, far from people thinking they're cheaper, they're actually more expensive. Okay. And I want to see more flexibility inside the city area for owner-occupied units, and more emphasis on affordable purchase.
So this time last year, we were in the midst of a general election campaign. We were famously told, or infamously at this stage, that there was going to be 40,000 houses built last year. We ended up just over the 30,000 mark. Do we know at this stage how many are we looking at this year? Because we know that things were going badly in the first half of the year because there was all the panic about the commencement of apartments. So any figures being thrown out there in terms of how many we're at?
I saw a figure of, was it 25,000 completions in the first 9 months?
Okay.
So that gives us an idea. The interesting about that 40,000 figure, not to relitigate it.
Yeah, no, let's not do that again.
No, but it's interesting because in each of the previous 3 years, there'd been a huge delivery in the last quarter. Yeah. And the reason it had been huge was because that's when apartments delivered. And what happened last year is apartments didn't deliver. And that's why we've taken the actions this year, particularly around the VAT in relation to apartments, and also the change in the standards in relation to apartments, both of which were criticised by the opposition. But we know that apartments do have a place, and they also can help us deliver a number. So the reason we missed our targets last year was because there wasn't significant number of apartments. We've taken measures in the last number of months to try and address that. OK, so Richard Boyd-Barrett, we're being told that this plan is basically promising to deliver 300,000 homes by the end of 2030. So we're taking it that that's 2026 through to 2030, 55 to 60,000 per year. If you go off last year as the baseline, you're talking about doubling the output per annum. Do you disagree with that figure, that that's what the target should be for the next 5 years?
Well, the central bank said we needed 68,000 a year. So it's short of...
Well below.
It's short of the target, and the Department of Finance report is an admission by the government that they still think we're still going to have a housing crisis for 15 years. Now, there's been a housing crisis for almost the entire time that I've been in the Dáil, which is about 14 years. And with the amount of promises we've had and the amount of plans that they were going to fix it, and the crisis has continued to get worse, doesn't give me a lot of optimism about either this plan or the ability of the government to deliver even on their own plans, which are usually inadequate. And the big problem is they are continuously depending largely on private developers in order to deliver their housing targets. Now, and that means they're just fantasy. They're a sort of hope and they're an aspiration, but they have no real control themselves over whether the targets are delivered. And it means the private developers who are in it to make money, not to solve the housing crisis, have the government over a barrel and keep demanding more things. And now we have a report out today saying commencements on planning permissions that exist, right, are slowing down. Why? Because the developers are saying, geez, we can get more stuff out of the government. We can ratchet up more of the value. We can get more rezonings where we'll make more money out of speculating on land prices. All the while, they don't deliver the housing we need. And what they do deliver is way too expensive for ordinary working people to afford.
Richard, even on public sites owned by the government where there's no speculation of land, the viability issue is an issue. The cost of construction is a very significant factor.
Yeah, because the state, even on its own land, doesn't have the capacity to build it itself. It's still relying on people who are trying to make profits, right? Now, we
always have relied on
OK, we have argued, and by the way, Fianna Fáil used to believe this back in the day about other areas of enterprise, that the state could do things itself and have its own capacity. That's where the ESB came from, right? Now, we need the same, and we've been arguing this for some time, we need a state construction company where the state has its own capacity, it has its own apprentices, it has its own tradespeople, its own building workers, it has its own quantity surveyors and architects to build the housing we need.
So if that was announced tomorrow, a state construction company, James Browne comes out tomorrow, announces, we're going to do a state construction company. How many years would it take to set that up?
It will take a while to ramp it up. There's no doubt about it. There's absolutely no doubt. But we can start, right? Because if we don't build up the capacity, we're just not going to be able to deliver. And that is what has happened year in, year out. I mean,
does the land development agency not do that?
No, it doesn't have its own capacity.
Development company.
It assembles land, but it doesn't have its actual own capacity to build. And it means, if you take the area, the first place to deliver by the Land Development Agency is in a place, Shanganagh, in my constituency. Now, we were campaigning for 17 years to get social and affordable housing. Unbelievable, right? It took that long. And then you look at the affordable housing, it's not affordable. 350,000 for a two-bedroom apartment.
If I take you back, you referenced the report from the Department of Finance, which basically said the way things are going at the moment, it'll take 15 years to address this crisis. They also pointed to a fundamental issue, and that is the available of workers, of labour, in order to ramp up construction here. How are you proposing that we can change that?
First of all, we've got to train our own apprentices, right?
Again, going to take time.
Yeah, but you can do it because apprentices can work on site in their first year. Right? So once you begin to take them on, it will immediately increase the amount of people available to work on building sites. Even the builders themselves, by the way, I heard some of them, the private builders, are even saying they could increase capacity. In fact, they reckoned, I heard some of them talking about it, saying they could probably double capacity. So they think there are workers available, but also it shows you why it's nonsense for the government to be saying there's too many people here, Ireland is full. No, actually, we need people to help us build the houses.
The problem, Richard, is that you're implying that for 14 years or longer that you've been in the Dáil, nothing has changed. That's not true. There was literally, in Housing for All, delivered 44,000 social and affordable housing. They're real homes. There's no fantasy in that. Anyone that's in a local authority dealing with cases can see allocations being made.
Not true.
Allocations are being made in a way that they weren't being made 5 years ago.
The National Oversight and Audit Committee gives the real figures, right, on social housing.
Well, Richard,
now they're a government body. The government body.
If you are
3,000 a year. That's
Richard, if you're doing your
constituency
work, and I've no doubt you are, you'll see people getting housed in a way that 4 or 5 years ago they weren't being home.
Because the government did take on board, to some degree, a proposal we made to start buying a higher percentage.
Hold
on. To buy a higher percentage of the private developments that were happening. You're only getting 10%, or then it went up to 10% social and 10% affordable. We said it should be 50%. And in some cases, because you couldn't meet your own targets, you were forced to go out and do what we proposed, which is to buy more of the private developments. That's what actually happened.
Eimer, can I bring you in here? So, is there anything you've been hearing thus far over recent days about this latest plan that gives you hope for your generation?
For my generation, I think people will be gulled to be listening to this. I think the first issue is we've had such a wait for this plan in the first place. And so I think that ramped up expectation that there was going to be something radical in it. there isn't. It's kind of unambitious, an extension of the targets that you already had that you've missed on several occasions. I don't see how it's going to address the crisis facing renters in this country.
Absolutely.
I think there's a lot of people my age who are in that late 20s, early 30s bracket who can't save for a deposit on a house because they're being fleeced by high rents, and who aren't earning enough to have one of your affordable homes. So that target of, we're hearing 15,000 affordable homes a year, if you're not earning enough to be in contention for one of those, then there's very little here that's going to be, offering you hope. And we know that rents have gone up again this year considerably.
Do you think that the supply issue was improving at all in recent years? I mean, there was a bit of an upsurge until we hit last year when things started to come down a bit. We're not quite clear where we are this year. We believe that'll be below again. Do you accept that there's been any improvement at all over, let's say, since COVID over the last 5 years?
I think people do accept that there has been, a level of improvement, but I think an issue is that there's been serious kind of inflation and, rents have gone up considerably, but people's wages haven't really. And so you're in a situation here where there aren't enough cost rentals coming on stream, and where affordable housing isn't that affordable for people who, it's not affordable for someone who's on a minimum wage salary each year. So I think people do accept that there has been a little bit of progress in getting to these targets, but, by the government's kind of own admission, or from the Department of Finance, we're looking at a chronic supply issue that it's going to take.
And Paul, doesn't that come down to an issue here? Fianna Fáil were the party that got things done, that built houses, going back to De Valera's time, and now basically people's confidence in your party's ability to deliver is just eroded away.
Look, I understand the frustration that Eimer spoke about, particularly from younger people who want to buy a home and people who are renting. Just an example, Dublin City Council opened their O'Devney Garden affordable purchase today. One bed's at €248,000 for people earning €55,000 a year. That is an achievable rate for many young people. 3 beds at $378,000, which would you need an income of $85,000. 5 years ago, when that O'Devney Garden proposal was coming through the local authority, Richard and many of people in this party were trying to shut down the meeting to prevent that decision being made. And there were people in the opposition, including the Social Democrats, that were criticising the beginning of that project.
Okay.
We have to actually do things. We have to build houses to do things. You can't just
Richard,
you can't describe the problem. You have to prescribe solutions.
Just give us some bit of hope here.
Yeah.
Give me one thing that you expect is going to be in this plan tomorrow that you go, I'll welcome that.
If they use, because it was a proposal that we made, and there's some reference to it, which is that they use compulsory purchase powers to get more of the vacant and derelict property. There's been some lip service reference to it. If it actually transpires, that will be an advance, because the amount of vacant and derelict property that could be used quickly to get more housing available for people is an outrage. If something could be done about that, that could actually impact.
Okay. Richard, can I just say, great to have you back on the scene, and thanks very much for coming out tonight.